LeadersIn is live at Boston Biotech, and I am absolutely delighted and honored to have the legendary Toni Hoover with us today. Toni, welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Anthony.
Honored. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Today in this interview, I'd love to go through some of your experience at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, your time at Pfizer, innovation, leadership, gender, a lot of things to discuss. But maybe first of all, we can just start with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It says on the website that Sue Desmond-Hellmann, the CEO, as you know, I don't need to tell you that, of the foundation, recently wrote a letter that says, there's one question that unites those of us who work at the Gates Foundation, and that is, what if? What did she mean by that?
Yeah, so at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we firmly believe that all lives have equal value. So what if we actually acted like that in the world? What if what determined who you are didn't depend upon where you were born? What if we could bring forward and apply all of what we've learned about health, preventing diseases, living healthy lives in the best of what we know from high-income countries, and be able to apply all of that technology, those outcomes to those who are living in the poorest of the poor conditions around the world. What if you could eradicate polio completely off of the face of this earth? What if you could eradicate malaria? What if you can stop and really have an impact on all of those illnesses that hold communities down from being as prosperous as they could be? What if you can empower women and girls to be all that they could be and really uplift their communities? That's what we think about every day at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's amazing. It's a powerful question, clearly a powerful question. And you mentioned there a lot of very, very good objectives or missions or purposes, I suppose. But how, when you are in a very privileged position with quite a lot of cash behind the foundation, do you decide to put those investments? I mean, how do you decide between this cause being more important than others, for example?
Well, there are so many important causes, and I have to admit I feel privileged every day to get up and go to work at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I believe all of my fellow colleagues feel that way. One of the things that we do in the Global Health Division, that's the division that I'm in, is really start with an understanding of where does the greatest disease burden exist. So we have been working with one of our partners for many years, the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation, who completes and compiles data that gives the world a sense of the global burden of disease, and we're now able to do that on an annual basis. But all of our strategies start from an understanding of the disease burden, and then we build strategies around ways that one could impact that burden. So, for example, in the situation with tuberculosis, we'll use that as an example. What's the burden of disease in tuberculosis? We have a sense that it is increasingly having an impact around in many of the poorest of the poor nations, but also expanding into Eastern Europe much more dramatically, and in Southeast Asia, as well as in areas where it coexists with HIV/AIDS in Sub-Saharan Africa, specifically in South Africa. Now, one can go about trying to tackle that illness in a number of different ways. Firstly, you can deliver the available treatments, try to deliver those in a much more effective way. make sure that you're using the diagnostics that exist, even though they may need to be improved. You can utilize the available treatments, the ones that, the ones that exist, although we recognize they need to be improved, but trying to deliver those in a much more effective way and really targeting those people who have the disease to try to reduce transmission.
Yeah.
You could also try to improve healthcare systems so that the healthcare systems can better treat those people with tuberculosis. You could also look to try to develop new interventions, new tools, shorter acting universal drug regimens, coming up with a vaccine. Each of those approaches are opportunities to make an investment, and you can pull those levers in a number of different ways. So what we then do is determine what's the most cost-effective approach to deliver the greatest impact. And once we make those types of decisions, all based on data, we then work with our partners on executing those plans and supporting with the investments in those partners, whether it's product development, delivery partners, making those investments so that they can execute those plans to try to deliver the impact and reduce the number of people who are being infected with tuberculosis, who live with tuberculosis, and also who die from tuberculosis.
Yeah. It's fascinating. What do you think, Toni, about some of those high-profile entrepreneurs that are talking about giving broadband through satellite access to, sub-Saharan Africa? I mean, is that where the money should be spent, or is it more on the ground at the level that you guys are at?
Well, I mean, needless to say, I'm not in a position to tell people how to spend their dollars. I think it's important that we have more individuals who are well-to-do, who are willing to be philanthropic. And who want to be able to do good. There are a number of different ways that can happen. We've made some decisions about how we want to help the world become a better place and be much more equitable. There are others who, as you say, want to increase equity by increasing their ability to be part of the world through the internet and broadband. I think it's not an either or, it's an and.
Okay, that's good.
It's an and, because bringing that type of capabilities to the poorest of the poor, to the communities where they do not have access to broadband services, will open up more opportunities, even in the space that we're working in. We're working in our financial services of the poor around mobile applications that will enable individuals in remote areas, and particularly women, to do banking.
Love it.
And make investments.
Love it. So as you said, it's an and, it's building on, and I suppose companies like Facebook, for example, they increasingly create groups, user groups of the same, who've got the same diagnosis, and they go and they support each other. So I see exactly what you mean. Toni, you mentioned there about encouraging people to be more philanthropic. I'd love to get your advice at two levels. Number one, what would be your advice to somebody who is now worth tens or hundreds of millions? Should they set up a foundation? How can they practically be more philanthropic? Is it just making a donation to the Bill and Melinda Gates? What can they do? And secondly, for the people that are on normal salary, is there anything that they can do to be more philanthropic if they're struggling to make ends meet themselves?
So for each of those extremes, I think the important thing, this is the way I think about it, is to know what you're passionate about and understand that regardless of what approach you might take, that you can make a difference, and be focusing on the ability to have an impact. I've been able to sit in on a couple of conversations with individuals and their surrogates who want to be more philanthropic, high net worth individuals. And I think the first step would be to step back and do some learning, learn from others who've been in the philanthropic space, learn what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, what are any regrets that individuals have made, but continue to focus on what they're passionate about and how they might be able to deliver impact, and to continue to think about those what if questions. What if their contributions can change the world in one way?
Yeah.
Now, for normal folks like me, I think it's so easy to be able to give back to society. I started very young with March of Dime drives in school. Grade school children can have an impact. You can then move on to making contributions of your time in volunteering. You see so many more younger people who are focused on social impact and volunteering, and I'm so enamored by the work that is being done by the Global Citizens Organization, where you can do well by doing good deeds. And so wherever you are in society, whatever your station is, you can do well and do good deeds with whatever you can contribute, whether that is your time, your knowledge, or your discretionary resources.
Great, that's brilliant. So it's not just about checkbook philanthropy, it's giving time
Exactly.
as well. And going
Exactly.
That's a phenomenal point. You mentioned just before, Toni, that whether you're a super wealthy, high net worth individual or just somebody on a normal salary, focus on the passion. What are you passionate about? What are the causes that you're passionate about?
Well, I grew up in New Orleans, and my father was a United Methodist minister, and he was in the school system. He was a teacher that rose up into administration of a high school in New Orleans. So I've always, and my mother was also in the school system, working with young children in pre-K as well as elementary school. So I've always been in a home where we thought about others and doing well for others. So that has driven me throughout my life and wanting to be able to give back. And I was able to do that for 25 years, being part of the pharmaceutical research and development industry in researching, developing potential new treatments for Alzheimer's disease, a devastating illness. I was part of the team that brought the first treatment for the signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease to market globally. And then having the opportunity to lead the product development of another agent for some devastating illnesses, for neuropathic pain, for seizure disorders, Lyrica, which is on the market right now and helping millions of people. So I've always had this desire to be able to give back where I could work in a team that was working for a common mission and common purpose of helping people live healthier lives. So it's a privilege to be part of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where we are working to eradicate polio. My father had polio as a child, and when I was thinking about joining the Gates Foundation, I thought about him and what my aunts used to tell me about how difficult it was for him as a child when he had to stay inside, when he was ill, how it affected his childhood. And to think that back in 2011, India became polio free, and that we only have a couple of places, tough places in the world where polio still exists. I'm confident that within a very short while, we'll be able to declare that yet another devastating illness, virus, has been eradicated off the face of this earth. Yeah. So being able to bring what I was able to learn over the 25 years of working in a great company like Pfizer, being able to take those learnings and being able to apply it for the sake of the global health issues that we're tackling is something that is extremely gratifying and continues to drive me each and every day.
No, it's beautiful. It's so wonderful. If you want to give back, you can't get much better than being in that foundation. By the way, do you hang out? Do you see Bill and Melinda a lot? And are they hanging out at the office once in a while?
I wouldn't say I hang out with Bill and Melinda, but they are very accessible, and I'm often in meetings with them. We have. They are very much hands-on as we are making very, very important strategic decisions. Yeah. They are very concerned about how the foundation is run, how the colleagues within the foundation, what the culture is in our foundation, and they are a learning couple. And they embed that throughout our organization, that we want to learn and continue to learn so that we know and continue to grow in different directions. We are a very data-oriented organization, and they continue to test us and remind us and help us discern how we make decisions based on data. So they're quite visible, but I would not say that I hang out with Bill and Melinda.
That's fantastic. I met somebody once who said he'd been to Harvard University, but he'd only been to have a look around. Toni, what would you say? I mean, before this program, we were talking about some of the things you're passionate about as well, being making sure that women have an equal place in all areas of society, and it drives me nuts that that this is even still an issue. Yeah. It really does. I mean, I've got a daughter and a son, and I just want this issue to go away. Yeah. But what's your thoughts on that? How is it being improved? What advice would you give to a young individual?
So I participated in a panel discussion last evening, a panel on women in leadership in the life sciences, and where we focused particularly on some of the obstacles still facing women in life sciences. So I just want to spend a moment talking about that. I think that there are many opportunities to accelerate the remarkable talent in life sciences across a number of different industries within life sciences in a much better way. One of the things that I learned from my experience is the importance of sponsorship, of having key leaders in an organization who will use their own personal capital to help advance others in an organization. That's definitely being done with men. It's being done, the data show, the research show that it's being done to a lesser degree with women. Right. Mentorship is important, but it's not sponsorship. I know from my own personal experience that I would not have been able to rise to where I was in Pfizer without having sponsorship from key senior leaders in my organization. I tried to do that in my organization. Sponsorship, mentorship is you are working with someone who is sharing their experiences and giving you advice. But they may not be able to help you get that next position. Right. Sponsorship is individuals who are key decision makers, movers and shakers in an organization who can actually make it happen for a person. They are in the rooms when people's names are coming up for potential jobs. They are in the rooms when senior leaders are talking about succession plans, and they can bring forward the name of someone that they know and they feel confident about, and they are willing to put their necks out on the line to help get that person in that position. Yeah. So that's what the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. The other thing is that can help accelerate women in life sciences is to be able to help them deal with some critical periods in their time, particularly for women who want to start families. Yeah. The research demonstrates that you start to see women leave life sciences positions because of intense environments and because they want to start these families. One of the things that we're doing that we've done at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is implement a benefit for all colleagues, men and women, around parental leave, whereby you get 52 weeks of paid leave when you bring a child into this world, or if you adopt a child, and you're guaranteed the same salary when you come back after a year and a role at the same level, as well as during that period, we work with the individuals to help make their transition easier. It's important that we think about those on-ramps for colleagues who are taking this time off. So being able to potentially close those gaps, keep more women in the sciences, and allow them to have both their families and be able to take the time that they need to ensure that they're starting their children off on the right footing is critically important. And much more broadly, we work on, we're very committed to empowering women and girls around the world. The research is indisputable that when you do this, not only do the women become more productive, the communities that they live in, their families benefit greatly. And so we are focusing a considerable amount of our efforts on helping to uplift women and girls around the world, especially those who are in the poor, low and middle income countries.
Wow, that's amazing. So this is why you'll be tap dancing to work in the morning.
Yes, exactly,
Buffett's line. You were talking there about time away and people being, is that for both women and men?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I want to apply for a job at the Broadband. I just had my 2 kids, so I've missed my opportunity now. I don't think
you can adopt.
I can adopt. Yeah,
it works with adoption too.
I'm not sure my missus would say yes to that. No. But that's amazing because that's very much like Scandinavia. In Scandinavia, men take more paternity time. They see it almost as equal in the house, and so therefore more equality in the workplace as well. So.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I know quite a few of my male colleagues are taking time off too, and I'm very encouraged by seeing that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Really good stuff. Practically, just a quick question on this, Toni. Practically, I know, at least in the UK, a lot of organizations see diversity at the top equals greater innovation, greater profitability, greater representation of their customer base, all of these so it's ticked, it seems, in the conscious mind. But is it about tackling it at the unconscious level of gender stereotypes that are way back there? I mean, is it at that level? How can we tackle it at that level? Is that just a matter of time that's going to solve that, you think?
I'm not sure. I'm hopeful that as we become a more diverse society, that some of those stereotypes will start to break away. But there are also things that are happening in our society, especially in this country right now, that make me pause and say that there is so much more that needs to be done to bring these issues to the conscious level. There's been such a considerable amount of work done right here in the Boston, Cambridge area by Professor Banerjee, who at Harvard, who is one of the preeminent experts on unconscious bias. And her work indicates that we all have biases, which means that we all have to come to our work, particularly the work that we do at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with a certain set of cultural competencies that you may not necessarily be able to discern on the surface if someone that you're working with has those cultural competencies. So it's important to be able to help people to see where their blind spots might be. That's actually the name of Dr. Banerjee's book, The Blind Spot. Understand what those blind spots are and try to tamp down some of the many stereotypes. Diversity does, and inclusion, I firmly believe, and the research bears this out, allows for a greater innovation, that you cannot have innovation without diversity of thought, diversity of experiences. Innovation is a team sport. You have to have a high-performing team, and it's hard these days to innovate without having diversity amongst in our midst. And I think it is important and for us to be very intentional when we're thinking about diversity and inclusion around what does that look like, what does that feel like, what does good look like, what are the outcomes, and be able to measure and what are the impact of potentially not having a diverse and inclusive environment. The data is clear about this issue.
True. That's true. And so maybe where individuals have got unconscious bias, that's where organizations can come in and help through putting some structures in place to make sure that they overcome that.
Exactly.
Let's talk about leadership if we can. Now, Toni, you are a remarkable leader. You've got a huge fan base, and you've been surrounded by remarkable leaders in your lifetime as well. So in your essence, what do you think makes for great leadership?
Well, I think, and it's been my experience of looking at individuals who I would think are great leaders, as well as those who aren't so good leaders, that you have to serve others. You have to be there to help others be the best that they can be. I've tried to do that in my own way on a daily basis, that if you can create that environment that allows people to be who they are in a very authentic way, and to bring all of their gifts and talents to work every day, not leaving a part of themselves in the parking garage or at home, because the work we do is so important, but bringing all of who they are, all of their gifts and talents. If you can allow for that type of an environment to take place where they are able to be as productive as possible and be able to break out of certain boundaries and be boundarylessness as they are going through the day and tackling problems. I think that's what a good leader is supposed to do. A good leader is also supposed to run interference for their teams, for individuals. They're supposed to remove obstacles so that they can get the work done, as well as being able to help people grow and meet some of what their goals and expectations are for their own careers. That's what I try to do, and that's what I've learned and taken from the good leaders that I've had the fortune of being around throughout my career.
Toni, I'd certainly want to follow you. That sounds sounds amazing, because you said right at the beginning about learning from leaders that you admire and leaders that you don't think are so good. That's exactly what Warren Buffett said as well, is that make a list of the good attributes and a list of them, just don't do those ones.
Yeah.
Toni, I know you've got to go and catch a flight, and I don't want you to miss it, because I really do appreciate your time here. It's not very good. So I've just got one other question for you, and it came in from somebody who'd studied you back in our office, and they said, my goodness, Toni's on boards, she's doing this, she's saving the world, she's doing all these things. From a sort of a personal time management perspective, how do you have any tips for us as to how to get more stuff done and the right stuff?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get tips from other people, so maybe you can help me on that note. Well, one of the things I do is identify my priorities, how I want to spend my discretionary time. And that has helped me make decisions about what boards I want to participate on, and I've made some decisions about focusing in on education, in higher ed institutions, on healthcare, on cultural issues. I'm on the board of the Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle, also giving back in the communities that I live. But I also think about being in harmony. And I spoke a little bit about this at the Women's Leadership panel last night, that it's important for me on a day-to-day basis to be in harmony. Now that might mean that I'm doing a lot of work at my job, but also what can I do to get what I need and be energized once I go home. And I'm fortunate to have a great partner. My mother lives with me. I have 3 standard poodles who love me, and when I come home I get the best welcome that anyone can get. They do their little poodle dance. But the concept of harmony and staying in harmony is something that has been with me for quite a bit of time now, and I try to manage that on a day-to-day basis. And I can tell you my business partner will be able to detect when I'm out of harmony, usually when I have too many meetings back to back to back in one day. But more than anything, it's doing things that drive the passion in me. And that's what I do every day at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so that helps to keep me in harmony.
That's right. And that brings us all the way back to your advice for philanthropists: find your why, as Simon Sinek says, find your passion.
Exactly.
And everything else flows into place. Toni, on behalf of all of our viewers watching, I really want to say thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
For your time today.
It's a pleasure.
So much, Toni.
Thank you.
Thank you.